Prince William's marriage to Kate Middleton marks the beginning of a new and independent stage of his life.
William is the new face of the monarchy for the 21st century.
On the surface, William appears to be a product of the old order, groomed to be king by the House of Windsor. But William is the son of Diana, the woman who transcended celebrity and transformed the monarchy.
The influence of his mother is going to be special. She opened his eyes to the other side of life.
It's easy to forget that William's formative years took place in the crossfire of the War of the Waleses.
Prince William and Prince Harry, they're children of a broken home. Not just any old broken home, possibly the most acrimonious and bitter separation and divorce in royal history.
Diana's life was steeped in controversy.
The government minister has said you're a loose cannon.
The House of Windsor tried to disown her, but the media were obsessed with her.
Could I ask you to respect my children's space?
How has the life and tragedy of Diana influenced William? And will William be the king his mother wanted him to be?
Hi. Hi, Tom. Congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Congratulations. Thank you. Okay.
Like his parents 30 years ago, William agreed to a television interview on the day his engagement was announced.
William's mother was this massive, iconic figure, the most famous figure of our age. Is that worrying? Is that intimidating? Do you think about that a lot, both of you? You particularly, Kate, obviously.
Well, obviously it'd be, I would love to have met her, and she's obviously, she's an inspirational woman to look up to, and, you know, very inspirational, so, yeah, I do.
Can you find the words to sum up how you feel today, both of you?
Just delighted and happy.
And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
The story of William and his mother Diana begins 30 years ago.
She seemed like a perfect bride for Prince Charles. She was young, attractive, she had the right background, and we were told that the right background in 1981 meant a member of the aristocracy.
But I'm not going to say anything, I suppose. Right, but Prince Charles did give us a hint himself. He said we wouldn't have to wait too long.
That was a girl who really wanted to become Princess of Wales, and nobody, you know, she wasn't going to upset anybody on the way.
The perfect marriage was watched by billions of people around the world. It was the last great royal wedding to galvanize the British public.
She emerged from this wonderful glass coach. She was on the arm of her elderly father who had suffered a stroke, and he did his damnedest to be up to take her down the aisle, and everyone was with him every inch as he walked her up the aisle. And she had this amazing dress she was wearing with its endless train and creases and lots of pretty little bridesmaids running around at her feet.
Here is the stuff of which fairy tales are made.
It did seem like a fairy tale. Suddenly, the world seemed electrified by Diana.
No other royal member of the royal family mattered that year, or I think for the next 17 years. It was just her.
Within 3 months, she became pregnant with Prince William.
It was a boy. It secured the line. Charles had done his duty. Diana had provided him with a son.
At the age of only 20, Diana had responsibility for bringing up a future king.
Her first real encounter with the media was in Australia on her first ever royal tour. And I remember meeting her then for the first time, and she was very nervous, she was very jittery.
When Diana was unsure of what to do on the walkabout, Charles sent her off on her own. But Diana had not expected the level of interest in her.
It would have been far easier to have had 2 wives, to have covered both sides of the street.
The tour of Australia and New Zealand was a real rite of passage and a real ordeal. And she was helped to overcome that ordeal with the fact that Prince William was with them on the royal tour.
At the age of 9 months, Prince William was launched onto the world stage.
Does Prince William have a favourite toy?
Jamie, he loves his koala bear he's got.
Day after day, the only question she was ever asked was, "How is William?" And she loved to respond to that. She emerged a very confident young woman.
They were halcyon days, that period between William's birth in 1982 and Harry's arrival in September '84. They seemed a happy young family. We know that Charles was helping out in the nursery. He was cutting short his engagements to be back in time for bath time. Diana was determined he should be involved in the early stages of William's life, quite unlike his own upbringing.
Another part of William's upbringing involved having to appear in front of the cameras. But there was a problem within the family that would make the cameras a much more intrusive part of his life.
Diana's weight loss, of course, did get a lot of mention. I mean, she became stick thin. There was concern, but it was explained away by the palace at the time, and we accepted what they said, that it was simply the stress of new motherhood, coping with a baby, coping with life in the Royal Goldfish Bowl.
In September 1984, there was another addition to the Waleses, but it was not the daughter that Charles wanted.
When Harry was born, Prince Charles was quite dismissive of both her and the baby. And she, as she said to me, something inside me died and the shutters came down.
Rumours about the state of the Waleses' marriage really began from about 1985 onwards, and certainly by 1986 I remember that already newspapers were sort of counting the days when, not when Charles and Diana were apart, but when they were actually together.
The royal couple gave their marriage very little opportunity to flower and to flourish. They were together effectively as a couple for only 3 or 4 years.
Although her marriage was disintegrating, Diana imposed her influence on William's upbringing. Unlike the 4-year-old Prince Charles, Prince William was not going to be educated at home by a governess.
I recall the first day vividly. Diana said to William, who was, dressed immaculately in his school uniform, "You've got to be, brave now, because when we arrive there are going to be probably 120 photographers, and that's what you're going to probably get now for the rest of your life." And of course he turned around and said, "I don't like photographers." We arrived at the school. Diana did her professional piece of that smile. Of course, William completely ignored it, just climbed the steps. We quickly go into this reception room where all these mums and their new kids there. Of course, William stood still, and you could see it, that the parents, dressed in their finery, were desperately edging their son forward to be the first to say hello to William. But there were very few days in William's early schooling that Diana didn't go with him. I mean, William was, as a young boy, seemed to me to be much more reserved, was, I suppose in a way, slightly sly character. You never quite knew what you were going to get with William, say from his brother, who was much more overt. Harry would say to his brother, "Oh, it's all right for you, you'll be king one day, I won't be, so there you are, I can do what I want." So, at a very young age, Prince William knew that he was somebody special.
I feel that the royal duty, in a way, is slightly more inbred. It has to be. I mean, it has to be trained, in a way.
Diana had done her duty by providing an heir and a spare. But now there was something that was going to break the golden rule of duty first. When William was 6, the marital problems between his parents came to a head.
The journalists, although they suspected, pretty much 90% knew that Charles had returned to Camilla Parker Bowles, that nobody could write it, and so the public were completely left in the dark.
At the beginning of 1989, Diana decided to confront Charles and his mistress.
On one evening, Diana went with the Prince of Wales to the 40th birthday of Camilla's sister. She said to me, you know, the Prince doesn't want me to come, but I'm going, she said, because I know Camilla's going to be there. Almost immediately, I heard Diana shouting my name outside. And I said, "Kay, you know, what's going on?" You know, she said, "Oh, well," she said, I can't find the Prince, Ken. I can't see Camilla either. And I need to go and find them." We descended to some stairs to a basement. And there was the Prince of Wales sat with Camilla. I mean, just talking. And Diana was incredibly bold, and I haven't seen her do this before. And Diana said something like, "Look, I know this has been going on for some time, you know, and why do you do it?" And to two very sort of stony-faced people. You know, Camilla was the one that said, "Well, it's all right for you, you've got, you know, 2 lovely boys," and so forth, as if that excused what was happening. And it was quite bizarre. It's incredibly uncomfortable for me, and I left. This had sealed in Diana's ideas and that any chance of a reconciliation now is finished.
At the age of 8, William began his life as a boarder at Ludgrove School.
How are you?
Unaware that his mother was planning to break a royal taboo that would drastically change the future king's life. Like generations of future kings before him, William's life is taking on a familiar pattern. His loyalty to the House of Windsor unquestioning. But William spent his formative years caught in the crossfire of his parents' public feud, the War of the Waleses.
Prince William and Prince Harry, they're children of a broken home. But not just any old broken home, but possibly the most acrimonious and bitter separation and divorce in royal history.
I would date the War of the Waleses from Diana's 30th birthday, so July the 1st, 1991. Prince Charles leaked a story that he had been prepared to give his wife a party just to show that everything was fine with the marriage, but he wanted to throw a 30th birthday party for her, and she turned it down. She didn't want it.
Whilst waiting on Britannia to join his parents, William was about to become an unwitting pawn in the royal feud. And unlike the 9-year-old prince, some of the media had begun to take sides.
Diana just ignored all the dignitaries that were lined up to meet them and rushed up the gangplank to meet the children, embrace them. There's a famous picture of them, her arms out, embracing them. What nobody really saw was that a few seconds later, after Charles had shaken all the hands of all the dignitaries, he went up and embraced the children exactly the same way, with the same degree of love and warmth. But nobody took that photograph.
What was also unseen was the effect their parents' marital difficulties were having on William and Harry.
As the children were growing up, they could sense what was going on, the stony silences, the shouting matches, the fact that Diana would retreat to the bathroom in tears. And on one occasion, I remember William pushed some tissues under the bathroom door, saying, "Please don't cry, Mummy." She felt so desperate, so alone, so constrained by the system. Some of the people who knew her very well were genuinely felt that she was on the edge, and on the edge of taking her own life.
It was clear there were major problems. But the assumption always was in those days was that this is the Prince of Wales, he's the heir to the throne. They can't separate.
On the verge of self-destruction, as a last resort, Diana decided that if the royal family could not help her, she would turn to the public. At home in Kensington Palace, Diana secretly recorded the intimate details of her family life. The tapes were smuggled out via an intermediary and passed on to a freelance journalist, Andrew Morton.
I first heard about the name Camilla Parker Bowles in a working man's cafe in Ruislip in North London, and I met the intermediary there, a chap called James Colthurst, and he played me the first tape, and I put the headphones on, and all around me these guys were eating bacon and eggs, and I was listening to these tapes, and it was astonishing. I felt I'd gone through a looking glass into a different world.
2 weeks before William's 10th birthday, Diana, My True Story was serialized in the Sunday Times. Diana had become a whistleblower and had gone public with her account of life within the House of Windsor.
Seismic. It really was at the time. I mean, for the first time, someone had got people, friends of a member of the royal family, talking on the record about the most intimate aspect of this person's life, namely Diana's marriage. It exposed it for what it was, the sham that it had become, the unhappiness, the misery that she was suffering.
The Morton book actually confirmed and identified to the world from the very person herself, look, I've got a problem here.
In a way, the book was her release valve. The night of the first Sunday Times serialisation, Diana called James, said that she's had the best night's sleep she's had in years.
Diana had gone to bed unaware that she'd opened Pandora's box. Following the serialization of the Morton book, the press interest in Diana scaled new heights.
The gloves came off. People were obsessed. I mean, the interest was phenomenal. The crowds of journalists that turned up to cover every event involving Diana.
4 days later, during a visit to a hospice in Southport, the pressure on her was visible for all to see. Life could never be the same for Diana or her son, William.
On holidays, for example, William would say to his mum, oh, we're not going to get any photographers turn up, are we, because you need a holiday. As if he was saying, look, you need help here, you know, and I hope they don't turn up for your sake. So when the press did turn up, it wasn't a hatred of them, it was more concern for her that he had a problem.
You notice in a lot of the photographs and the footage that whenever he's near his mother, he's checking to see that she's okay, which I think is a really nice sign from the little boy.
It is announced from Buckingham Palace that, with regret, the Prince and Princess of Wales have decided to separate. This decision has been reached amicably, and they will both continue to participate fully in the upbringing of their children.
Diana told me that they together sat down and explained the circumstances of why, you know, we, as your mother and father, are no longer going to live together, because there has been a breakdown in our relationship, which sadly happens in life. So, yes, they were told about it, but given the environment in which they live in, there was too much going on, really, for them to go and sit down in front of the television or something and groan and moan about it.
She once said to me that she wanted William to see a life that was not just 4x4 Range Rovers, holidays abroad and country house estates. She wanted him to witness the full panoply of what is modern Britain today. So she took them to amusement parks, she took them for hamburgers.
Try this, Jim. Thank you very much for turning for me.
It was very clear to me that Diana wanted them to be, in the brackets, normal. You know, Diana said, come on, William, we're going to go down to McDonald's, or we're going to find something from Marks and Spencer's in Kensington High Street. So this whole idea of trying to do things with him that other people did was very much of Diana's insistence. I mean, I remember, you know, the Prince of Wales hearing that William had been to McDonald's and had been to Marks and Spencer's, and, you know, would say, you know, but why do you need to go there? And I recall, you know, both William and Harry enjoying these breakouts from a royal palace.
As well as making life fun for William, Diana was keen to show William another side of life, far, far away from the royal palaces.
I remember her taking William very early in the morning, away from the glare of the cameras, to the Passage Day Centre to hand out clothing, to hand out food and so forth. And I remember, you know, William there handing out a tea and a coffee or something, and this one guy came up, having spent the night on the street, and said, give me that, I'm not interested in you. And he knew exactly who it was. And this was quite an opening, quite an awakening for William. And Diana, I remember in the car back, said, well, you see, William, you see, this is what happens. Not everybody likes us. This was part of Diana's education, wanted him to see what other people did.
William and Harry, between the separation and the divorce, were moving from one parent to another, and there was concern that they were being too indulged, as many separated parents do. They try and win the favours of the other. But significantly, both William and Harry were moving more into their father's orbit.
It was great fun for Prince William. He was introduced to some of his father's country pursuits. That was quite interesting to him. You know, it was very, very exciting for him. So he started, I think initially he was very much his mother's son, his mummy's boy, if you like, going, you know, spending a lot of time with her. But then there was a moment of change, and that, I think, upset Diana.
This tug of war to win the hearts and minds of William and Harry was conducted in private. But what would affect William's upbringing much more profoundly was the war his parents began to win the hearts and minds of the public.
Well, I'm well surprised you score a goal, actually. Surprised? Yeah. I'm just making a nuisance of myself.
A nuisance of yourself?
Yes, Pa.
That's not very difficult, is it?
Well, it's hereditary, so.
Touché.
In 1994, when William was 12, Charles retaliated against Diana for the Morton book and became the first Prince of Wales to go public about his mistress.
Did you try to be faithful to your wife?
Yes, absolutely.
And you were?
Yes. Until it became irretrievably broken down.
Prince Charles took away the fig leaf when he went on television and was interviewed by Jonathan Dimbleby and confessed his adultery with Camilla Parker Bowles.
It was the first time he'd made a tacit admission about his relationship with Camilla.
We all went to see a preview of the documentary, and I remember just racing out of that preview, trying to make sure we got the transcript absolutely spot on, because, you know, this was the most amazing event, the future king admitting that he'd had an adulterous affair with a married woman.
The programme would relaunch hostilities with Diana on a scale previously thought to be inconceivable. When William was sent to Eton at 13, an informal deal was struck with the press to leave him alone. But while the cameras were kept away from William, his mother was secretly inviting the BBC's Panorama team into Kensington Palace.
Panorama was a surprise. I know why she did it. It was all part of her sort of retaliating 1 year, 18 months on from Charles's Dimbleby interview, which she found very upsetting.
She won't go quietly, that's the problem. I'll fight till the end, because I believe that I have a role to fulfill. And I got 2 children to bring up.
My impression was she had manipulated how she looked in it, that she, from everything, from the way she dressed, to the way she made up, to her facial expressions.
After the Martin Bashir interview, Diana regretted one thing, and that was talking about James Hewitt and her affair with him.
Did your relationship go beyond a close friendship?
Yes, it did. Yes.
Were you unfaithful?
Yes, I adored him. Yes, I was in love with him.
I think the reason Diana felt that she'd done the wrong thing by speaking about James Hewitt in her famous television interview was the impact on the boys. She told the boys that she was seeing James in order to teach the boys how to ride. Then the penny dropped. She had been using William and Harry as kind of like cover for her affair, because she was telling them at the time, oh, he's teaching me how to ride. Prince William knew that was a lie, and when he met her at Eton, where he was then a boarder, he wouldn't speak to her for a few days because he was just so upset at that deception. Diana always felt that in the court of public opinion she would triumph. That was her modus operandi. She felt that by giving the television interview she could speak over the heads of the royal family and connect with the people.
Do you think he would wish to be king?
There was always conflict on that subject with him when we discussed it. And I understood that conflict because it's a very demanding role, being Prince of Wales, but it's equally a more demanding role being king. And being Prince of Wales produces more freedom now, and being king would be a little bit more suffocating. And because I know the character, I would think that the top job, as I call it, would bring enormous limitations to him. And I don't know whether he could adapt to that.
That effectively was Diana saying Prince Charles wasn't fit to be king and shouldn't have the job, and William should get the job. I mean, it was a huge moment, not only in television, but also for Prince William, which a lot of people then followed and actually supported that view. Now, that was an awful lot of pressure being placed upon the shoulders of a young boy.
As well as questioning his father's right to rule as king, the Panorama interview set in train a series of events that would culminate in tragedy for his mother.
No question, Panorama led directly to the divorce. Within a month, the Queen had written to both of them, Charles and Diana, and said, this has got to end, you must be divorced.
Diana's greatest fear was losing access and control of her children, because in law, the Queen can actually take custody of the heirs to the throne, that is to say, William and Harry.
She's here now.
On the day the divorce she never wanted was finalised, Diana, Princess of Wales, as she now is, was on familiar ground.
Feeling desperate during the divorce, Diana turned to friends who could offer a sympathetic ear.
Once it was finalised, the biggest relief was that she was going to be allowed to have the children, because she would give everything in the world to have those boys. She loved them to the ends of the earth.
Diana was still allowed to see the children, but she was no longer part of the royal family, which would bring to the surface the issue of divided loyalties for William.
You know, even to a boy of 1995, he was 13, he will have seen that his mother was criticising his father, and he loved both his parents, and it must have been very confusing for him.
You can't really tell the impact it would have had upon William, the breakup of his parents' marriage, but his behaviour at school changed. I remember I was working as a newspaper reporter, and I had a tip that he'd been involved in a fight at school. Now, at the time I thought this was a great story, you know, for the tabloid newspaper I was working for. William in a fight at school, ticked off by the headmaster. But actually what I found out subsequent to that was that the boy that he got involved in a fight with had been ridiculing William about his parents' breakup. And so it must have impacted on him.
Although the occasional story surfaced about William, at Eton he was still far away from the media spotlight. The only time the press came to visit was when his mother called on his 14th birthday. It was a gentle reminder that his mother was still the biggest celebrity in the world.
Even after the divorce, she was like a magnet to the media. She would always go with a press pack of at least 30 people.
She was a big story. She sold photographs around the world in huge, colossal numbers. I mean, she was an industry, a one-woman industry, if you like. And there were a lot of photographers who got rich just photographing Princess Diana.
It was like a drug, you to get more and more pictures of this woman, you know. She looked $1 million, and you just couldn't stop yourself, you know.
There was still major interest in her, more interest in her than any member of the royal family. It was almost as if she had her own court, and she was a star in that court.
To cope with this press obsession, Diana recruited an experienced PR consultant as her media advisor.
The princess was followed by the media everywhere that she went. They waited outside Kensington Palace, and they would hop on scooters and follow cars.
Diana.
It was difficult. It was obsessional.
Officer, can you move?
It was, 24 hours a day. But it wasn't life-threatening.
Hello, Diana.
She was very cute about it, very knowledgeable about it. She knew them all. She knew all the cars that followed her. She knew all the scooters that followed her. And she kind of handled it very well. And she always looked immaculate and knew, that she was going to be photographed.
I always saw it as a bit of a grey period in her life. Diana's alone in a pretty hostile world.
Diana, we have to remember, had discarded her police bodyguards, taking considerable risk, in my view, at times.
For Diana, the rules of engagement with the press had changed.
Could I ask you to respect my children's space? As a parent, I want to protect children. Thank you.
When William was on holiday with his mother, he could see that in the land of the celebrity, there were no rules.
His mother's life was trouble. It was always trouble with a capital T. But with Papa, with Prince Charles, he could get away from all that, and there was a degree of freedom he relished. Diana couldn't do things with the boys that Charles could do. Diana didn't have royal homes dotted around the country. She didn't have wide open spaces for them to run around in, knowing they wouldn't be photographed, and the boys looked forward to that hugely.
In contrast to their mother, photo shoots with their father were rare, controlled, and agreed with the press. But back at Eton, it was impossible for William to ignore the strange world of his celebrity mother. When he was 14, stories began to surface in the newspapers about relationships his mother was alleged to be having.
Although the school went to great lengths to ensure he didn't see the daily newspapers when there might be something offensive to him in them, it was hard to blot out everything. And also his friends saw things, the parents of his friends saw things.
If William didn't like the stories appearing in the press, neither did Diana. So she decided to leak her own.
Oh, Diana managed to get stories leaked out through me and through other people. Richard Kay was the journalist she told everything to.
It's no secret that on one occasion I was photographed getting into her car, and we'd arranged to meet somewhere unlikely, like around the back of Paddington Station. She was extremely careful about what she said to me about her private life because of what I did. I mean, where she could help me would be if someone had reported that she was seeing X and she wasn't, or she would tell me that's not true.
Although Diana could trust some journalists to write her version of the truth, she struggled to find someone amongst a sea of friends whom she could confide in.
Diana had a very hard time trusting people because, obviously, being in that position, who's your friend?
As many single parents find who are going through a divorce, you tend to rely more on your children. William became less of her son needing her advice and more of an advisor to her. Diana was thinking a lot about her future, how she could strike out on her own, and, you know, talking about getting rid of some of her clothes. And Prince William famously said, well, why don't you auction them off and give the proceeds to charity?
85,000. 100,000, 65, 175. I knew she was going to say that. 200,000.
The gowns were sold in New York and raised, what, £4 or £5 million for charity.
We tend to think of her as, you know, just a gorgeous princess in glamorous gowns and tiaras, but, you know, towards the end, I think she discarded all that. She was just out to try and make a difference, a big difference.
Princess Diana did everything she could to make her children see that there was more beyond the monarchy. There was more than being royal.
Having discarded her gowns and tiaras, Diana began her new role, to rid the world of landmines. It would be her most controversial role to date.
Angola had 15 million unexploded landmines just scattered in places. Young children playing football on the local village football pitch were getting blown up.
I accompanied the princess as a member of the press to Angola. She had the bit between her teeth. She seemed very determined to make a difference. She ticked us off in the press a little bit, saying that we'd focused too much on her clothes, not the issues that mattered.
You knew that you were being, in many ways, as a member of the media, being manipulated by her for her causes, but you couldn't help yourself.
Diana wasn't just showing William a role for a future king. She was showing him how to walk a political tightrope.
Ma'am, the government minister's home has said you're a loose cannon by supporting this campaign. Do you have any reaction to that?
Virginia, I'm only trying to highlight a problem that's going on all around the world. That's all.
It's been said, though, that you're aligning yourself with Labour policy. Do you think that's wise?
Labour? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're...
We really need to move on. The programme going.
Thank you very much.
That's okay. So that's...
Oh, I really bet you to burst into tears now.
Don't worry.
There was a sort of naivety about Diana that I thought was endearing. It was what drove her, what enabled her to be compassionate.
There was a cynical view that her care and compassion were photo opportunities. But I remember going to Chicago with her, to the Northwestern Hospital. We were shown all over, including the premature baby unit. I was very unwilling to allow the photographs into that unit, and so the cameras didn't go in there. There was no difference to the way that she behaved with the mothers, with the children, with the compassion that she showed and the interest and the tenderness towards the children than if the cameras had been there. She was genuinely, that sort of person.
While Diana was trying to show William how royal celebrity could be a force for change, he was sheltered away at Eton. But what happened next would not only help him understand compassion, but would throw him right back into the media spotlight.
I want to welcome all of you, and particularly our guest of honor, Diana, Princess of Wales, the metaphorical equivalent.
By the time William was 15, his mother had successfully forged a new role for herself outside the royal family. But her life was becoming more unpredictable.
She had a great deal of fulfillment in her public life, in her public role, but her private life was difficult. I think it was always going to be difficult. Where do you go after you've been married to the heir to the British crown? Who'll take me on, she would say. Who really in their right minds would take me on? I think she was always looking for a man, for the right man, and probably never found him.
In July 1997, Diana took William and Harry to stay with Dodi Fayed at his father's villa in the south of France.
Clearly she'd fallen for him in a big way. Who's worked in Hollywood, who's been used to glamour and the cameras and a life in the public eye.
Diana's time spent on the Fayed's yacht off Saint-Tropez was her final holiday with William and Harry, and her final act in the War of the Waleses.
She was down in Saint-Tropez on that holiday with William and Harry, and she came over to our boat, and she was so upset. She was almost pleading with us, why are we there? And I said to her, would you want me to ring the editor and see if we can perhaps pull out of here? And she said, well, I don't really want that, she said. And then, anyway, she went back in the boat. She did this most beautiful dive into the sea. And then she went over to where Harry was on a jet ski, and she got on the back of the jet ski, and she just whirred round our boat on this jet ski, giving this most amazing photo call. So work that one out. I can't. I still to this day can't work it out.
She only behaved like an aspiring starlet in Saint-Tropez because Prince Charles was hosting a 50th birthday party for Camilla Parker Bowles. I remember James Colthurst asked her, if Prince Charles came to you on bended knee, would you take him back? And she thought about it for a long moment, and she said yes.
Accident happened in the early hours of this morning.
The pages started dancing on the wooden floors at about 1:30 in the morning.
I was asleep, and a colleague hammered on doors and windows until I woke up.
We're just receiving the sad news that Diana, Princess of Wales, has in fact...
Princess of Wales has died.
Prince William was at Balmoral. His father came in to his bedroom, woke him in the morning and told him the news.
After years away from the glare of the media spotlight, Diana's death pushed the 15-year-old William centre stage. By putting aside his private grief and stepping out to greet the public, Prince William had come of age.
They were going around looking at the flowers, all the commemorations to their mother, and a lady made a comment to William and then handed him some flowers.
William,
thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, hold on.
Thank you very much.
He was just so polite and together, it seemed extraordinary. But William really showed what strength he had.
On September the 6th, 1997, millions of mourners around the world watched Diana's funeral. They also saw William waiting in the wings, ready to follow his mother for the last time. 14 years after his mother's death, William has a prominent role as a member of the royal family. But what will be the influence of Diana's life on William? Will he want to follow in her footsteps?
Clearly, the influence of his mother is going to be special. I mean, she opened his eyes to the other side of life.
The first ever patronage he assigned himself to was the Centrepoint Centre for the Homeless, because he will remember and reflect back to those days when his mother took him to the Passage Day Centre, to all the work that his mother had done for the homeless, the aged, the dispossessed.
William has always been searching for normal. He wants to live a life less extraordinary.
He's found someone who doesn't necessarily have these emotional problems. She doesn't come from a broken home. She comes from a very solid middle-class family. The very fact that he was able to meet, fall in love, and live a quite normal existence with Kate shows that William benefited from that experience with Diana.
And you produced a ring?
Yeah.
There and then? And it's a family ring?
It is a family ring, yes. It's my mother's engagement ring. Obviously, she's not me around to share any of the fun and excitement of it all. This was my way of keeping her sort of close to it all.
Is faith healing for real or just a giant hoax? Derren Brown undercover in Miracles for Sale, tomorrow at 9, over on Channel 4. Here tonight, William's pedigree is posh, but Kate's varied and extended family could make her truly a people's princess. Meet the Middletons, next.